Hi everyone, my name is Pat. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing you guys my 20 questions book tag. Alright, so as always, the original video will be posted down below and also the questions. If you hear birds, the wind, and the rain, it's because my window is open. I like it. Fall vibes, you know? So let's get started. The first question is, how many books is too many books in a series? That depends. But usually by the fifth book point, now it's gonna be like, wow, that's a lot of books. A quintet, that's great. But once it goes up more than 5 books, that's when it's a little bit too much. But it also depends on the story as well. If it fits the entire story, if it fits like the plot, narrative, and how like big the scale of the story is, then more than 5 books is good. But usually at the 5th bookmark, that's when I'm a little hesitant in reading something. Usually a trilogy or a quartet is great. How do you feel about cliffhangers? Okay, cliffhangers, they're good. They're frustrating, but a really good cliffhanger with like a really great build-up that comes out of nowhere is really great. It keeps me hooked and obviously makes me want to read the next book. So cliffhangers are great. Great cliffhangers are very much welcome. Now, cliffhangers are why I like to wait for a series to be finished or be close to being finished, because I get like really frustrated, mad when a book ends like a really like anxiety-inducing kind of cliffhanger. So yeah, I like cliffhangers, but only when they're done really well. Hardcover or paperback? Paperback. I mean, you can see, well, the only hardcovers that I have are like Book of the Month covers. Most of them are like Book of the Month covers, and the rest are like from book boxes. The other ones, for sure, I got them discounted, not like full price hardcover, because I prefer the price, plus also just when you're reading it, you don't have to like worry about the dust jacket. I mean, I read with a dust jacket on. Still, you know, it's a lot less bulkier and a lot easier to read and bring around. So paperbacks for me all the way. Favorite book? Okay, it's really hard to like say what my favorite book is because I have a lot of favorite books and it could be like separated into different genres, age range, but one book that to me is like my favorite personal, like very personal favorite of mine is Sargo Badir's finale. I think I've mentioned this before because it's a very personal favorite. I resonated a lot with the main character Stargirl, and then when I reread it, I resonated a lot with the other people and how I'm kind of now, you know, kind of seeing myself outside of identifying as Stargirl, but also like other people that can view someone like Stargirl. So yeah, it's a book that I wish I read like earlier and when I was way younger. But yeah, that's a very personal favorite of mine. I have a lot of favorite books, mostly fantasy. Like this year so far, my favorite books are like We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars. Where is it? Oh, here. We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faisal. I also just recently finished reading Chronicles of the Witch Queen series by Kais Villoso. Right now I'm reading City of Brass, which I think is going to be like a favorite book of mine. It's a lot this year. Christina Lauren's Love in Other Words was really good. I have a lot of favorite books. I mean, just this year alone I have a lot 5 stars, 4.75 star reads that I love, that I will always recommend. So it's really hard to say that, but one book is definitely Stargirl. Least favorite book? I don't really have one. I would say I do have some DNFs, that's for sure. So I don't know if you can count that as like least favorite, because I didn't finish the books. Like I didn't finish Girls at the Edge of the World this year. Oh, maybe Den of Vipers. It's right here, Den of Vipers. That was really, I went into that knowing that there's probably not going to be a very good plot, very good characterizations. I went into that for the smut, despite the scenes were fine, but I just disliked the characters and the plot. Again, I didn't go in knowing that I would love the plot or the characters. I went in for the smut. But it really grated on my nerves, the characterizations. It felt very 2D. There's a certain way you can write a really good smut that you could still end up liking the characters and the plot and like appreciating it, because it still at the end of the day adds to the story. It still is part of the story, even if it's not the main point of the story. Even with my low expectations. And then The Librarian by Christy Sloat, I really disliked the character. She was not a fun character to follow. I DNF'd that book. I just didn't like her. She wasn't very likable. She's quite hypocritical and she likes to blame other people for what she's going through, even though they don't really have any control over it. And it's just those two things, just not. So I did have that one. This one I finished. Love triangles, yes or no? I loved love triangles before. They were very fun when I was very young. But now I prefer a really like well-developed relationship rather than a real love triangle, like love triangles now, because I feel like it's become really divisive. Like it's being used as part of a plot, or like part of the plot but not really adding on to the story now, with a lot of love triangles that I've been reading. A really well developed love triangle where you really can't choose one or the other, or you can choose one or the other for the whoever is the main character, then that's great. But it's very rare that you will find a really good love triangle. Now it's just like you already know who that main character is probably going to end up with, and it's just, I don't know, it's become really necessary to a story now with like love triangles now that I read. So the most recent book you just couldn't finish. I wouldn't say I DNF'd this, but this one I couldn't get through, and I'm still going to try to read it. Gear Breakers. I've talked about this before. I read this last month. I had to put it down because I just couldn't get through the story. I'm still waiting for the audiobook, so I'm gonna try it again, see if I will like it. If not, then I'm gonna have to DNF it. And like I mentioned before, I DNF Girls at the Edge of the World and The Librarian by Christy Sloat. Girls at the Edge of the World is not bad, but there wasn't really anything happening, and I didn't care enough for the characters for me to want to find out what happens next, even though the plot and the premise sounded so good and it was very promising. But like at 60-65% there wasn't anything happening, and there wasn't really much development in the characters. So I'm just like, where is it gonna go? Because I'm not seeing anything. Didn't really care enough for the plot or the characters for me to keep going. A book you're currently reading. This is what I'm currently reading, Kingdom Copper by Stitch Chakraborty, second book in the Dave Abad trilogy. I am 420 pages in, so I have 200 pages left. I'm gonna finish this today and I'm so I love this so much. I'm really enjoying this so much. I know this is going to be my favorites for the end of the year. I mean, I just knew even before reading it, even before I read the first book, I knew this was going to be probably one of my favorite books, favorite fantasy trilogy, favorite series ever. So really loving this so far. Last book you recommended to someone. Last book that I recommended to someone, I don't remember because I just recently made these like horror thriller Bookmarks video shorts, so I guess those books are my latest recommendations. I mean, I guess you could call it this one also a recommendation because I love it and I would recommend it to everybody, so that. Next one. Oldest book you've read by publication date. I think it's one of the classic, probably like maybe Frankenstein or Pride and Prejudice. Let's check. So yeah, Pride and Prejudice. This was published in 1813. So that is the oldest book that I've read by publication date. And then the newest book would be, because I have some arcs that I finished, so I guess those ones. I think So This Is Christmas, because this came out October 13. So I read an arc of this one. So next one, favorite author. Oh, I have a lot, honestly. Let's go through them. One is very recent, Hafsa Faisal. I'm eagerly waiting her next book, which is Tempest of Tea. It's Villoso, author of Chronicles of the Witch Queen. I really love her writing. And then Holly Jackson, the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I just love her writing. It's YA mystery that is so good. So I can't wait to read As Good As Dead, but also whatever other releases she might have. V. Schwab, she's like an author by author. I've read all of her books except for Near Witch, which I don't know if I want to read, but if somebody told me go read Near Witch, okay. I'll read it because I love V. Schwab. Laini Taylor. Laini Taylor has only released Days of Blood and Starlight. Daughter, Smoke and Bone series. She hasn't released anything outside of that, I believe. But I really love her writing. Very atmospheric. Oh no, she has Strange Redeemer. I also love that one. I finished it. She has beautiful writing. Beautiful writing. Next one is Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've read majority of her books. I think I have 2 more books that I still haven't read from her backlist, but I have One True Loves available on my library, so I'm gonna pick that up I think Friday. I also have the audiobook available, so I'm gonna be reading it this month. Emily Henry, very recent favorite. I've read all of her books so far and I cannot wait for book lovers. You can already pre-order it, but I'm waiting for if it's gonna be on Book of the Month because I want my books to match. Helen Huang, author of the Kiss Quotient series. I love her. I cannot wait for her next book. I don't know if she's gonna have anything for next year because so far there hasn't been any like announcements. So just, patiently waiting whenever she releases another one because she writes amazing romance. Madeline Miller, author of Circe and the Song of Achilles. I recently actually got a copy of Circe, like the UK version of it. Love. And then Catherine Moon. I've only read one of her books, but I loved her writing. So now I'm like looking at all her backlists. She has a lot of books, so I'm kind of saving them. But I do have a copy of all of them, like ebook form. So next one is the Mafi. I read her Shatter Me series. I haven't completed it yet. I kind of find it odd that the book started again, even though it was supposed to be like just a trilogy. And then there's another like set of books that happened, like another trilogy after that. I think it's completed now, but I read I think the fourth and the fifth book, and it picked up right where the third book ended and added more to the story. But it came like 3 years later, so it was just a little odd to me. I didn't appreciate it at the time, so I might have to reread like the entire series back to back so that I can like appreciate that the fourth book, even though it came out 3 years later, is starting up from that one point, because it's already like I finished that story in my head because it's supposed to be only a trilogy, and then it came out of nowhere that she's adding 3 more books. Yeah, but so I'm gonna try to read that, but she has a few more books I haven't read, like Nevermore and Furthermore. Never that series, like that middle grade series I haven't read, but I know a lot of people love that too. And then she has another one that's coming out. Oh, and Emotion of Great Delight I haven't read as well, because I know a very large expanse of sea I read and I loved it, but it was like very heavily emotional. So I'm like avoiding reading An Emotion of Great Delight because I feel like it's going to be another one that feels like that. Very like emotional and heavy, and I'm just not ready for it yet. And she has a new book coming out I think it's coming out next year, and I cannot wait. So Tahira Mafi is a great author too. I love her, but she pulls at my heartstrings a little bit too much sometimes. Next one, Essie Chakraborty. Again, I already read like 1.5 of her books, but I love her already. Yes, I have like a lot of favorite authors, and I feel like as I read more of the books that I do have, I will have more favorite authors. Buying books or borrowing books? Both. Although right now, I'm trying to stop buying books. A lot of books that I haven't read that I do own, but I love borrowing books as well, because right now I have really great access to a library system. Like the library system here is really good, so I love borrowing books. It does take a while, like the wait, but it's fun, you know? So both, buying and borrowing. A book you dislike that everyone else seems to love. I think I don't have this. I may have books that I didn't like that a lot of people like, but usually there are like, you know how a really well-loved book also has like that small group of people that hated it. Usually I will find other people that kind of didn't like it too. So right off the top of my head, I can't really remember any that I really disliked. More like I found it okay rather than like really bad versus them loving it. One that I recently read, I would say, is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. It was an okay book. I didn't really dislike it, but I didn't like it close to how other people like it. Like a lot of people like it. So yeah. Next one, Bookmarks or dog ears. I don't ever dog ear a book. If I really don't have anything to like put in the middle of that is not bulky, that will not destroy the book, I'll just remember the page, like write it down or like put it on my phone somewhere. Or I would remember enough of what happened in a story that I could just like skim through where I think I stopped if I don't remember it. So I don't ever dog ear a book. Bookmarks, definitely. A book you can always reread. Stargirl by Jerry Smalley. A Wrinkle in Time. I read that so many times when I was a kid, and I feel like I can still read it and not fully understand the sci-fi part of it, but I love rereading those. Suggested Reading by Dave Connes is another one that it's a book about a girl who loves reading and her discovering like the true impact of reading in books to other people. Next one. Can you read while hearing music? I used to not be able to do this. I used to hate listening to music, even if it's like instrumental music, because I would follow like the sound, like the notes and how the music flows. But now I've gotten a little bit used to listening to music while I'm reading. I still prefer it being quiet while I'm reading. If there's like a certain noise that I want to drown out, usually when there's someone singing, I would use like instrumental music to kind of drown that out so that I can focus more on my book. But if it's a music that has lyrics, I won't be able to focus on the book because I'm gonna be focusing on the lyrics on top of the actual music itself. One POV or multiple POVs? To me, it doesn't really matter. It depends though on a book. Like I remember Falling Kingdoms, it had a lot of POVs that I felt like wasn't really needed. But for the most part, if it's like a high epic fantasy, I feel like multiple POVs work best. But it also depends on what the story is about and where it's following. If it's a very character driven book, like just the main character, then just one POV. Depends on how it's going to be used and written, if it works with how the story and the characters are written, that if one or more multiple POVs will work. So either way, I like. again, it's the execution part of that will determine if I like multiple POVs or not, or just one POV or not. Next one, do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? I can read a book in one sitting. I would prefer it if I could read a book in one sitting, but now most of the time I would read books over multiple days. I used to read like one book in one sitting, but the way I've just been like distracted by a lot of things has made me into like a multiple day reader, which I think is for a lot of people, because we don't just have that much time. I mean, I do have a lot of time to read compared to other people, but I still like to like kind of break my reading apart, because I get distracted and I get like, sometimes I like think something else while I'm reading, even though the book is really engrossing. I'll just get super distracted. It depends on the days too. Like if I feel like very focused, I can focus on the book, great. If I don't, even if the book is so engrossing, I don't, so I have to stop and like let myself get distracted, or like just get out of my system before I sit down and read again, because it's going to take away from my reading. So who do you tag? I get very like, I don't know, I feel like not a lot of people will see it anyway. So if you're watching this and you have a booktube channel, or if you just want to answer the questions, go ahead and answer them down below. Let me know, and yeah, I tagged you, I guess. So yeah, those are all of the questions for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will also be doing another video about this channel because I recently reached 300 subscribers. A little update on that, plus I guess on this channel as well. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you on my next one.